Welcome, everyone, to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. I'm a networking expert and the author of the upcoming book, No Strangers, How to Build Community, One Relationship at a Time. My why is the pursuit of mastery, and the goal of this podcast is to lock arms on a lifelong mission of daily personal growth to become the best version of ourselves. So let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. Our guest is a personal trainer. He's a nutrition coach, and he's a pregnancy fitness expert. So welcome to the call, Mr. Keagan Campbell. Keagan, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing, Joel?
I am awesome. It's like the nicest day of the year. I went out and bought a patio set, which is awesome. I'm using a brand new USB microphone for the first time, so we're getting pretty fancy today. We're stepping up our game. What have you been up to today?
Well, it's been a pretty regular day for me. A lot of my day centers around my daughter. So it's mostly just wake up, get myself together, and, oh, is there a baby? Okay, what does the baby need? And then I just sort of spill most of my day into that until, of course, I get to work out, which is a bright spot for sure. But a lot of it's very baby related. So a lot of daughter watching.
That's a proud papa right there. So we're going to talk a lot about fitness and nutrition on this episode, but let's get started by going back to your story growing up and where your love for fitness came into play.
Well, growing up, my parents always made sure that we stayed really active. Me and my brother were the kind of kids who always had an overabundance of energy. So they always felt like it was the best idea to keep that energy focused or expended. And for the most part, during school, focusing as much as possible. And then outside of that, extracurriculars, they just loaded us up. I was in competitive swimming. I was in martial arts. I was in soccer. And anything and everything they could do to keep our energy just constantly being expended as much as possible, keep us busy, keep us interested. And so we were always very active as kids. And so I kind of grew up not really knowing much else. And so it was just sort of natural for me to constantly be, using my body, moving around, enjoying being active as much as possible. And then, of course, I started moving into university. And as I moved into university, life changed, priorities shifted, directions sort of changed. You start to decide what you're going to do with yourself. And all of that responsibility to make choices about how active you are or aren't in your life start to fall on you. And that mixed with a few other factors where I realized there was more that I could be, that I wanted to be, and that I wanted to strive to be. I realized I had to make a decision, start focusing my energy into one of those sort of active pursuits. And getting into the gym was sort of the natural answer to that. And so it was actually a New Year's resolution, believe it or not. I was a resolutioner, and I walked into the gym on like January 12th. I remember it was like 10 or 11 days after New Year's when I made the choice, like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to join the gym and I'm just going to start working out. This is the day. This is the time. And I didn't even let the guy pitch me. I actually he sat down with me. He was like, how can I help you? And I was like, I heard you have a promotion going on for New Year's. He's like, yep. I said, I heard it's even cheaper for students. He said, yep. I said, I want that price. I heard it's this. Am I correct? He said, yep. I said, okay, cool. Sign me up. And that was the end of that conversation. It was one of those, like, I'm sure he was happy because the sale was like
easiest sale of all time. Yeah.
Right. Like it's a fool's mate kind of motion right there. You sit down and the guy basically says, just give me the membership. I don't really care how, just make it happen. So yeah. And that's how it started there. At least being active and just being in the gym and starting to become a gym rat. The passion for it, though, I feel like was sort of one of those things that laid dormant in me for a long period of time. And the more I think about it, the more it becomes clear that it was really tied to the concept of freedom. I wanted to be free to be the person I knew I could be. I knew that the difference between where I was and where I wanted to be, where I imagined myself, was just, it felt like universes apart. It felt like I was trying really hard to get there, but not taking the right actions, not finding the right path. And I realized that it's because there's a saying my old martial arts instructor actually used to say for us. He used to say, you fake it till you make it. And if you fake it long enough, you'll eventually make it there. Thing is, if you don't take any action to bridge that gap, you can't really make it to anything. So I realized that I could only fake the concept so long before I had to take some sort of action to help actually bring me there. And that's sort of what happened. I started realizing, if I want to be this person, if I want to be, have the freedom to be who I want to be, act as I want to act, live as I want to live, I have to start here. And this is where I'm going to start taking the first steps. It was with a physical endeavor that I was also going to throw myself fully in emotionally, because I wanted to be just fully invested in it, top down, nothing left behind. And that's where the passion started to grow from there, knowing, as I started to realize that this wasn't just freeing for me physically, it wasn't just freeing for me emotionally, it was the kind of thing that could lead to professional freedom as well. And yeah, it kind of just kept growing from there every year, step by step, learning new pieces of the puzzle to kind of insert into it. And yeah, so now I'm here and kind of enjoying the fact that I found that freedom, I found that direction.
And can anyone just become a personal trainer? Can I just go out and start showing people how to get in shape? Or do you go to school for that? Are there certain courses? Are there an amount of hours you have to put in?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where there's there's a couple different paths. When it comes to just starting yourself out, you could either go the route of taking like a college or university course. You probably know a number of people who went through the kin courses in university, and kinesiology is definitely a very viable path for finding your way into the fitness world and becoming a part of the fitness world for sure. And there's a great deal to be learned there as well. I mean, the foundational knowledge you have to graduate from a kin degree, as well as the experience you gain throughout the program, it's invaluable. That's not the only path, though. There's various other forms of accreditation that exist out there from various other organizations who you can get your certification as a personal trainer through, and then start training from there. Now, of course, between the two, you have, the extensive education that comes from a kin degree, and then you have sort of the much shorter accreditation through, say, CanFit Pro, that would be a lot shorter in terms of the amount of time you spend in the class, amount of time it takes you to get from beginning and I'm not anything to, and now I'm at the end and I'm certified as a trainer. But I would say that when it comes to comparing the two individuals, one who goes kin, one who goes CanFit, it really comes down to how they approach the next, say, 5-10 years of their lives as a trainer in the industry. You could go through the kin route and then rest on your laurels, sit back, do nothing to really improve yourself, and kind of stay exactly where you are, which, as you might even suspect, especially in the fitness industry, as things continuously evolve and science shows us new ways of doing it would really hamper your ability to stay, with the curve, stay with everybody, and constantly provide top-notch service. But to be with the CanFit person, if they're constantly putting their head down, grinding, learning new things, learning from their peers, learning from the best out there, attending courses to get new certifications, to gain new knowledge, the sky's the limit. I mean, it's really just a matter of how much can you learn and how quickly can you learn it. And that's kind of where it all kind of comes together there. So there's many different avenues. And I mean, it's really, once you get into it, it's just about putting your head down and just getting that work done and constantly trying to stay on top of what's going on. So you're always updated. You're always ready to go for whatever the challenge is and the new wave of ideas and thoughts and methodologies are.
So we met a few years ago. I was looking for a personal trainer. A mutual friend of ours recommended you. And while I was preparing for this podcast, I came across an old testimonial that I wrote for you. So I'm going to read this real quick. So here's my testimonial, and I forgot about this. What I had planned on getting was a personal trainer for 3 months. What I didn't expect was getting a new friend and having a personal trainer for 9 months. Keagan was always on time, always pushed me harder than I would push myself. He helped me lose 10 pounds of fat and gain 10 pounds of muscle. He not only helped me get results, but he taught me a lot about fitness and nutrition. He went way beyond the call of duty and switched our sessions around my extremely busy schedule. He attended my endeavors outside of the gym to support me as a friend. I couldn't recommend Keagan more highly as a personal trainer. So that's a pretty stellar review. So how does it make you feel when your clients provide amazing feedback or testimonials like that? How important is that to you?
To me, it's really important, and not from sort of the self-congratulatory or the point of view of me just enjoying people shouting my praises. It's proof that the people I'm working with have found value in what I'm doing. And that's how I approach every session, every program I create for them, every interaction. I'm trying to find ways to add as much value as is humanly possible to their experience. I know that, you know, you may come in with a certain set of expectations as to how things are going to go and what you're going to do, you know, how you're going to feel maybe at the beginning or the end of the session. And I want to make sure that every step of the way, I'm finding, you know, avenues that I can use to make more for you, make something else that you didn't expect to be there, find something new, you know, discover a path or an idea that you maybe never considered and bring that to light, you know, share information you never considered, you know, being important to whatever your goals are. And so when people are, you know, when they say really great things about me, I feel great knowing the fact that it came from a place of them feeling like I got what I wanted from this. I feel good. I was serviced well. I was cared for. You know, he was attentive to my needs, and you know, we did something significant. And the fact that I'm able to positively impact somebody's life, and then they share that with me, it lets me know that yes, it did happen, and I can feel, you know, I can feel good. I can feel validated in that my approach to my career and my life of trying to help people and make a positive impact on their lives is actually moving in the direction that I'm hoping it would, and that I'm trying to make it continually move in. And so, yeah, I just feel great knowing that, you know, positive things have happened for them. And I feel so happy for them that they feel good. They feel better about themselves. They've gone somewhere with their lives and achieved something that they didn't think was possible, or that they just a little bit hoped that it was possible, but weren't sure how to get there. And I helped make it possible. So yeah, it's a great feeling to know that I'm helping people and improving their lives.
I feel like it's not just that, you know, they gained some muscle or lost some weight or that they look better. I feel like it goes so much deeper than that, that they feel better and they sleep better and they have more clarity, and their self-esteem and their confidence goes up, and they start to dream bigger and they do better at work. Like, I feel like what you help people with takes care of kind of the basics, the foundation to a good life, and then they can build on that foundation. Do you agree with that statement at all?
I would agree with that statement. I mean, it's something I preach to my clients pretty regularly, that the body and the mind are very intrinsically linked. Like, there's so much you can do to the body that alters how the mind functions, so much you can do in the mind that alters how the body functions. It's a lot of harmony between the two of them. And so when I get to help people, when I get to work with people in the gym, I'm not just looking to, you know, achieve whatever physical thing that's happening at the gym. Like, okay, we're doing this many reps for this particular muscle group to grow that muscle group. Yeah, that's happening, but I'm also looking to see a positive shift in their mindset, a positive shift in their confidence, how they feel about themselves and how they approach their day because of how different they feel. And yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I think it can sometimes be missing from a session for some trainers, but I mean, it's one of the things that I strive to reach as regularly as humanly possible, because I want to see that person change mentally and physically, because I know the mental change is the thing that will just echo into their lives far, far beyond anything we do in that gym with the weights. That mental shift will have far reaching ramifications that will be so positive, and I hope will lead them to sort of take a moment years down the line and think, I'm really glad I did that. I feel like that was a really positive thing, and it's helped me a great deal. Like, that's what I'm looking for.
So I have a confession. In the years since we worked together, so I just mentioned in that testimonial that you helped me lose 10 pounds of fat, and then I gained 10 pounds of muscle. So I was probably in the best shape of my life. I don't know if that was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I can't remember exactly how long ago, but since then, you know, I was traveling a lot. I was busy. I wasn't taking care of my health as much. I gained 17 pounds, and not in the right way, not 17 pounds of muscle, like in all the wrong ways, where it's like you get a belly and all those things. So I had gained 17 pounds. And then during the last, say, 3 months of quarantine, I've really focused on my nutrition, on my fitness, on my sleep. And the goal is to lose those 17 pounds, and I'm down about 13 pounds. So I've been doing well. Yes. And
Awesome.
you know, I found that the way that I felt and my mindset have changed for the better, where when I was at the peak of that weight gain, it's like it affected other things. And since I've really been active and losing that weight and sleeping better, that I feel better. And there's a quote I just read that says, if you're in a bad space right now, you need to get out of your mind and into your body. And I find that any days where, you wake up, you're having negative thoughts, you're not in a great space, that as soon as you do a workout, as soon as you do hot yoga, as soon as you go for a jog, you just feel better. And that it's weird. It's like everything's self-created, like the good states, the bad states. It's just chemicals flowing through your body. So that was my confession. I didn't keep up the amazing fitness, but I'm back on track now. And us doing this call, I'm going to be asking a few questions that are on my mind, and maybe that'll help me, and that'll help our listeners get into a peak state. So in the time since you and I, worked out together, you started a company. So this is Seventh Star Fitness. So can you tell us a little bit about this company and the services that you offer?
Sure. Well, basically, when I wanted to create the company, I thought to myself, what am I looking to do with myself professionally? And what do I feel is missing from the fitness world? Because I'm a very fond believer that, I don't like redundancy or repetition or things that are just constantly echoed amongst a million other people. I like to approach things from perspective of, is there a gap, and can I fill that gap with some sort of service that will then allow people to change their lives for the better in a way that they couldn't with what was available before. And so the idea was to create a company that focused itself on bringing fitness to people, making it extremely accessible. Because one of the major challenges for a number of people, and it's something that, I remember seeing with us, like while we were working together, you'd have days where you're like, I'm just so busy, it's hard for me to, get to the gym this day. And the challenge of getting into the gym in and of itself can be really big. It can be, in some cases, for some people, in feeling insurmountable. And so finding ways to make it so that I could get fitness into their lives and bring it to them was a major focus of it. So when it comes to the services we provide, it's very much focused on that concept. A lot of it centers around that. So I do in-home training through the company. So I come to your house, bring equipment necessary to get the job done, resistance bands, weighted vests, the like. And that's, if you don't have, say, a gym in your condo or some kind of workout space, and maybe in your apartment building, that means I can bring everything we need, and you don't have to worry about that. Otherwise, of course, I'm happy to come and do what we got to do in that condo gym as well, because sometimes the challenge is less having the place and more knowing how to use it properly and get the most out of it. So in-home training is a huge one. Another one is I also do sort of on-site type training where, say, there's an individual who doesn't have space in their home, but there's a gym nearby that's not one of the big box ones, because they don't really like us freelancers coming in and training people, but a smaller gym, and they haven't used it, but they'd like to start working out, and that would be the best place. I can meet them there, and we can work out there, which for a lot of people who feel it's a little bit more intrusive to have somebody in their home on a regular basis, it could even just be as simple as they're so busy that cleaning out sometimes is just a ridiculous task. So bringing us somewhere that's outside of that space, a lot easier. So I do on-site training, stuff like that. Through the nutrition side, I can do everything from like your sort of very sort of scheduled and regular meetings that comes with like a nutrition coaching, where it's very involved. There's a lot of interaction, a lot of collaboration between me and the client to kind of figure out what's working, what's not. We're in regular communication to kind of constantly monitor what's happening. We can make adjustments on the fly because we're constantly very honestly speaking about what's happening, how they're feeling, and how things are working out. And then, of course, also down to something as easy as, oh, you just need a nutrition program for this month. Here you go. I ask them questions to get some information, shoot it off to them, and then they can kind of, self-direct the whole process from there, because the package has, some information about nutrition, some pieces that might not be available to them right now, some information that'll help clarify, the mystery around nutrition and healthy eating and how to let your food work for your body and not against it. And then, of course, the plan itself, which they could just follow and go about their business. And, for a month, they have exactly what they need. And that's exactly what some people do need. It's less about someone on their back every day to make sure things are, moving as they should. And more about just providing someone with the guidance. And then, of course, the pregnancy side of things, I do a group pregnancy training thing where I can have a bunch of pregnant women who are all looking to, improve the overall pregnancy experience and perhaps even make labor and childbirth a little bit easier, a little less risky, and then a lot more I don't want to say enjoyable, but of course, relatively speaking, I guess that's sort of the concept. Or just individual training, because when it comes to the difference between women who are pregnant and the average individual, there are some real considerations that need to be, followed through with, because they're not the same. They're just not the same. They're hormonally and physically in a very different place, and so you have to treat them, very very specifically. You have to treat them in such a way that you take in consideration all of the things that a pregnancy does to a body. And that was, of course, something that was really important to me, because I realized all too realistically that it was a gap in my knowledge base. And as you probably know by now, like, if there's a gap in my knowledge base, one of the things that I pride myself on doing is trying to find a way to plug it with whatever knowledge I can get my hands on. So yeah, those are the things that we do for the most part, but it really all boils down to making fitness as accessible to people as possible, because it's one of those things I believe we should all try to make a part of our lives as much as possible, because we're better people when our bodies and our minds are at their best, are at their peak. And so getting to that point is just a matter of getting fitness, the information and the capabilities in the hands of as many people as humanly possible.
Speaking of pregnancy, you and your partner recently became first-time parents, so congratulations.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
What is life like as a proud papa, and how do you find work-life balance? And I guess my last question is, did your partner's pregnancy, did that inspire you to become a pregnancy fitness expert, or were you doing that before that?
As a new dad, I think the word challenging is the easiest one to fully encompass life as a first time dad. I mean, the world as we know it now is a very different place too. So there's the challenges of current and social, issues that are causing, changes to my daily routine, changes to, our approach to managing our time with her. But I have to say that overall, I'm actually finding it's not easy, but it's rewarding. It's very, very rewarding. It's as a first time dad, you're constantly second guessing and triple guessing everything you do, everything you say, every decision you make. But I find that the constant approach, that constant suspicious approach to my own decisions, has led me to be a lot more careful about how I interact with the world really at large. I think many times before I say anything, many times before I do anything. And it's also, I think, made me a great deal more empathetic. I don't think I lacked it necessarily beforehand, but I'm constantly thinking about how things affect other people. I mean, I won't lie, it starts very much with my daughter, but it's definitely one of those things that, because you practice it so much and you're constantly thinking, well, okay, how is she feeling? How is she responding to this stimulus? How is this going to be affecting her? It's just sort of natural that the repetition of that on a regular basis will just cause you to do that more often outside of that relationship as well. And so, yeah, as a first time parent, it could be a challenge, but again, rewarding as all hell. It's one of those things that, you put in a whole bunch of work, and you might have a moment where you think to yourself, oh my God, why am I doing this? This is so hard. And it's almost as if they know you need that moment to realize exactly why you're here, and they'll just give you something. And it may seem so small to the outside person, but when you see it as a parent, it feels like a monumental moment, and it just answers your question immediately. There, that for you. Cool. Got it. Proceeding. What next challenge? What challenge you have for me next? Bring it on. Let's go. And as far as work-life balance is concerned, it's one of those things it's an evolving process. You constantly test out concepts and see if they work or not, which is funny because it's very much like the personal training world. Nothing that we do is sort of concrete and ironclad. It's very much okay, how did this work? Did it work? How much did it work? How much did it not work? Okay, what can we change to bring it closer to that sort of desirable level of functionality? And try to continually search for that best result, knowing that the chances of you reaching it may not be very big, but you're constantly going to chase it regardless. And so the constant alteration of your path and constant adjustment makes for, a really interesting pattern over the course of weeks, but definitely the kind of thing where, once you kind of get used to constantly adjusting things and figuring things out, you fall into a flow, and it becomes a lot easier to deal with.
As a pregnancy fitness expert, do you have any tips for someone that's pregnant and looking to stay active?
Yeah, of course, always. I'd say the two biggest tips, the easiest things to say to any pregnant woman who may not be sure about what's going on. The first one I say is it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as going out for a walk every day. Go outside, get active, move, and that can be a great way to just get the ball rolling, get things started. There'll be a lot of positive effects you can get just from taking, say, an hour-long walk, every afternoon. You can do it maybe even in bursts, do like a half hour at lunch and then another half hour after work. Again, it doesn't have to be complicated. The second thing is, thanks to the fact that pregnancy hormones do create a lot of laxity in joints, just don't do anything explosive. If the concept of what you're about to do is reminiscent of, say, jumping, so like jumping jacks, or like even like a lunge where like there's a sort of explosive motion that has to happen for it to be accomplished, that's probably not something you're going to want to do on a regular basis. It's not like you're completely prohibited from doing that sort of thing, but it's definitely the sort of thing you should think, do I need to do this? Is there a better, more, stable way to do this with less explosive of a movement? And if you can do that, go for that. And honestly, your body will be a lot, better off doing that than it would be the explosive movement, which could be problematic for you, especially if you're not used to it. But yeah, it's pretty simple when you get down to it. The complexity really comes from having to think your way around certain programs for someone in terms of how you're going to approach certain motions, muscle groups, try to strengthen certain movement patterns without causing that problem of creating explosive movement that could be dangerous. Yeah, that, and probably avoid abs for a little bit. I mean, there are a couple ab exercises you could do, and I definitely can suggest a couple of those. But for the most part, if you're not sure what you're doing there, just avoid it for now. You won't be put out that much by it.
Speaking of abs, I mentioned that when I gain weight, it goes to my belly, all of it, always. So for people like me, and it's a thing that happens to guys a lot, they call it the beer belly, even though I don't drink beer. So I don't know why that's happening to me. Imagine if I did drink beer. So
right.
Do you have any advice on how to lose weight specifically from the belly area?
That is a very good question.
Is it just 1,000 sit-ups a day? What needs to be done here?
It's funny because like there was originally that thought that like, oh, if you just do enough sit-ups, you get that six-pack, you'll get rid of that belly fat. And then it became wider known that the concept of what's known as a spot reduction, which is trying to lose weight in one specific area, it just started being said, that's completely impossible. You can't do that. And that's how I felt for a long time, where it's like, genetically speaking, where fat goes on is not something you decide. And as a result, you can't decide where it comes off any more than you can decide where it goes on in the first place. And so it was one of those things that kind of held true for a while. And then a year or two ago, as a gift, I got a subscription to a magazine called Mass Magazine. And they do a lot of analysis. They do these sort of large scale analysis of multiple research papers for specific topics. And these meta-analyses often reveal interesting things about, certain truths that we hold for the fitness world, either confirming them or sort of turning them on their heads. And one thing that they found is that one study was showing that there was some evidence to support the idea that spot reduction is possible. So I'm of two minds about the concept. Where it has sort of led me is to this sort of hybrid thought pattern, which is, if you don't have muscle underneath the fat, there's no point anyways. You're not going to lose fat to show a six-pack when there's no muscle there to begin with. So adding more muscle to an area, definitely not going to help you or hurt you in any way, shape, or form. So go for that for sure. But you definitely want to take the approach that even if there is some spot reduction that happens by doing like 1,000 sit-ups, count on more of the fact that you just want to burn a lot of calories in order to help shed off weight everywhere. And that will do a lot more good for, that six-pack that you're looking for than, focusing solely on doing sit-ups. Get some squats in there, high calorie burning exercise. There's a lot of movers happening there. And so, when you're moving a lot, you got a lot more calories burned, which means you're going to be losing a lot more fat. And that fat is going to eventually lead to the showing of those abs more. So I have like sort of a hybrid thought pattern around it. I don't write off the idea of spot reduction where doing sit-ups is going to help. But I also don't subscribe to it fully in that I think just doing abs is going to solve everything. So that would be.
Are there certain foods that you would stay away from that maybe target that area, or is that a myth? Foods don't target an area. Like you hear about wheat belly, you hear about fruit belly. Is there any truth to those?
I would say that the
beer belly, we got to include that one. Yeah.
Actually, all three of them, I'd say that all three of them have one very reasonable thing in common, which I think would be the sort of factor that causes people to believe that they are the culprit for your belly, which is high calories and high carbohydrates. And we don't need as many carbohydrates in our lives as most of us, the average individual, intakes. And so a lot of people are just over consuming in carbs. And so all that overconsumption leads to a caloric surplus. And that surplus, your body goes, well, I have all these calories that you're not using. What am I going to do with it? Because I'll just package it up in fat, just store that at the belly. That's fine. Maybe some of the thighs. How about some in your butt? That's generally what it's going to do. And so, fruit, again, lots of sugar, higher carbohydrates. So we're going to have a surplus. And it's really more about being in a surplus than it is about eating fruit. You can still eat fruit. Fruit can still be a part of your life. There's, great micronutrients in there and antioxidants that kind of help you live your best life and be your best you and have your best workouts. But it's something you don't want to sit down and eat like 3 pounds of like pineapple and cantaloupe, because that sugar rush is not going to be something your body deals with very happily. It's going to definitely punish you for it in some way, and likely it's going to be through accumulation of fat because there's just too many calories to deal with. So yeah, that's all those three. They have that in common: the beer, the fruit, and the wheat. More often than not, all three of those, like that's the chances are that's what's happening.
When it comes to achieving your ideal body, what percentage is nutrition versus fitness? It's kind of the two main things that people focus on. If I'm at the gym doing everything I need to do, but I'm eating McDonald's 3 times a day, that's not good. And if I'm eating amazing, but I'm just lying on the couch all day, that defeats the purpose as well. So tell me if this is completely wrong. I would think that it's heavily favored towards nutrition. Like I see it as, if you eat right, that's probably, 80% of it. And then 20%, the fitness is like carving, all the good nutrients that are coming in. What are your thoughts on like a percentage of one versus the other in getting to your ideal body?
It's funny you say 80-20, because I was thinking to myself, the Pareto principle is probably the easiest one to fall back on when it comes to referencing what I would believe to be the importance split between the two. And yeah, 80-20 in favor of nutrition. I definitely say that. That's definitely the calculation there. I've tested it myself just because I'm one of those people who, you could tell me something and I'll believe it, but I also want to see it in action. So I've tested the theory to see can I just eat trash and then work out hard? And I'm not talking like, very easy peasy, maybe even medium level workouts. I'm talking the workouts that like push me near throw up. Like we're right on the edge of pass out level, and see if my body will change in the way I want it to. And yes, that pushing of the weights going really hard does help. And you do see some progress, but the amount of progress you can see by letting the nutrition really align properly with the workouts is just, it's not even a competition. And the 80-20 definitely is something I'd say is a great way to frame it and to look at it and to give you a respectable, or like a very, very good understanding as to how much nutrition really plays into your body's overall condition, be it your composition, be it its performance. Your nutrition plays a huge role in that. So yeah, I would definitely say 80-20, great split to kind of use. And it definitely also underlines the fact that neither one can exist on their own, really. Like you said, you could eat trash and work out like a monster, and chances are you're going to be like, at best. You can eat amazingly and just do nothing and still like look, And I would even argue that because you're like laying on the couch all day, if we literally took that as our example, like the amount of damage that would do would just be insane. So neither one can really work without the other. They're both so fundamental, but nutrition plays such a huge part, especially when it comes into body composition. It does tell the whole story once you look at someone's nutrition and you kind of figure out, okay, given what I see here, this is why you look like this. Like, it makes a perfect picture for me when I usually see those two things in combination.
How important is social media when it comes to finding success as a personal trainer? And do you have any advice on how to connect with people or how to find, your perfect clients?
Well, in terms of importance, I would definitely say that it does play a huge role, but I would say more in the terms of like digital presence. I'd say social media is a big part of that because I mean, social media is the biggest part of a lot of people's experience, digitally speaking. A lot of people are looking through their Instagram, cruising through their Facebook casually, or looking at various other social media platforms to kind of get their entertainment and their information for various topics. And so having that as part of your overall presence worldwide, like just in general for your business, is super important. I've noticed myself that it goes a long way in terms of speaking to your legitimacy as a business and as especially a trainer, because it helps, especially with like things like Instagram, you can get a really good visual as to what's going on, what they're talking about. You can see, okay, this person trains with these kinds of people and does these kinds of exercise and believes these sorts of things. And look at them doing this exercise and this exercise. Okay, I believe this person knows what they're doing. There's a certain amount of trust that can be built through actually being able to see it. They say seeing is believing, right? And that's something that a lot of people put a lot of trust in. And so I would say it's a hugely beneficial thing to have a really good digital presence. And in terms of really engaging with people and bringing people in and getting people on board with you, I think authenticity is sort of the truest name of the game here. I mean, we're living in a world where a lot of people are very suspicious of advertisements. They're very suspicious of promotional material. They can be very untrusting of things that they see on the internet. And so if you are the most authentic version of who you are online, the most you could possibly be in an internet form, people can find trust in that because they sense the personality behind it. They sense that like very specific energy that you bring as a person to whatever it is you're doing online. And when they feel that, that's where that trust comes from. They can go, okay, I can trust this guy because he's done like 90 posts and every single one seems like the kind of thing only they could do. Like no one else could do that because it's their energy and their energy only that I sense in this. And I don't feel like I'm being sold anything. I just feel like I'm being provided with entertainment, information, whatever it is, but in just the kind of way that only that person could do. And so, yeah, I say that's the biggest piece. Be authentic, be real, because realness gets you so far right now.
Speaking of authenticity, you and I are both super video game nerds, so we're going to throw that out there.
All right.
Top three video games of all time for you. Not the best games of all time, but your top three favorite
my
games.
Top three favorite games.
And then we'll get back to fitness. But this is your authentic moment here.
So. All right, my authentic moment. Okay, this is hard because I've been gaming for more years than I feel like I even want to say about.
It's funny because I ask you top three like it's easy, but I'm like hoping you don't ask me back because I haven't thought about it. So
well, you think I'm not going to fire that one back?
Right, pressure on you.
Okay, so this first one is a difficult pick only because they just did the remake. And so to pick between the remake and the original is a difficult process for me because I feel like they're part of the same thing. But I'm going to say Final Fantasy VII. Pick remake or original, doesn't matter to me because the story is phenomenal on both ends, in my opinion. Just a great JRPG and something that sort of set the tone for cinematic and theatrical approaches to video games. So that's not even a question for me. Metal Gear Solid, but yet another thing where which do you pick, right? And for that one, that's a very good question. I'm gonna say not Sons of Liberty.
That's number two.
That's number two. Guns of the Patriots was great.
That's number four.
That's number four. But I'm gonna go with the first one for the PlayStation 1, for the PS1. That was a solid gaming experience and one where you got to see the madness of Hideo Kojima at play. He showed us things in video games we didn't think were possible, like to beat this guy, you have to change your controller from port 1 to port 2 so he can't read your mind. Who was doing that back then? Nobody. So Metal Gear, that's number two. Third spot, that's rough, man. It's a real rough pick, man. I don't know how I'm gonna pull this last one out. You know what? We're gonna go with Shadow of the Colossus. I'm gonna go with Shadow of the
The
Colossus.
PS2 version or the remake on the
Yeah,
PS4?
yeah. Then I'm picking a lot of things where it's like there's a tough choice between them, eh? Um, I'm gonna go with the remake, like the sort of updated version, for just the reason everything's the same except for the fact that the colossi are far more responsive to you, and so they notice you and care a lot more about your existence, and the AI plays a lot more aggressively with the fact that it knows you're coming to kill it and has no business, wants nothing to do with you, and so will go out of its way to mess you up if it finds the opportunity. And so that sort of updated AI does bring a more immersive energy to the experience. And so I'm going to give it to the remake version. So yeah, that's my top three.
Wow. So I'm gonna go full nerd for the next minute, and then we'll get back to
Ooh,
nutrition.
okay,
So,
all right.
so Final Fantasy VII is the first RPG I ever played, and
Oh,
I had no idea what I was doing to the point that, let's say the game took 40 hours to beat. I was 30 hours in before I knew there was any materia. So I wasn't using any magic, any materia for 30 hours. That's how much I had to grind and level up to just physically hit people to kill them.
wow.
So that's embarrassing. And I beat it again this year with all the traveling I've been doing. I got a Switch, which is amazing. So
Nice,
I
yeah.
beat it on the Switch. Then Metal Gear Solid, amazing. And I remember the first one, you're talking about being able to read your mind. And what they did was they were able to read what was on your memory card.
Yeah.
So you'd be playing and they would talk about another game that you had already played because it could read your memory card, but you didn't know that. That wasn't something that happened in video games. So there
Yeah.
was a boss that could read minds and he would tell you things you had already done and you have no idea how he knows this. And that was like a groundbreaking moment. And then
Oh yeah.
last year I beat the remake for Shadow of the Colossus. So we're on the same
Nice.
page. I'm
Hey.
up to speed on all the remakes and replaying your favorite games. So that's awesome.
Nice.
So uh, if there are people listening that don't like video games, we apologize for the last five
We're sorry.
minutes.
We're sorry.
So we'll
We're
get
sorry.
back to the topic at hand. So mentorship. How important is it to have a mentor, to surround yourself with the right people? And did you have any mentors along the way that have helped you get to where you
Oh yeah. I first and foremost, yes, it's indispensable. I think that the distance a trainer can get in their career is just it's exponentially higher if you've had the right mentor to help guide you through some of the difficult decisions, some of the harder moments, as you're starting out in the world of training. Even as you're just trying to cross over into that world, having the right person there to tell you, like, it looks hard over here, but I'm telling you right now, if you got the right mindset, if you put together a plan for it, and if you just stay hungry and push, you will get there. Just having that person help kind of not really take you by the hand, but show you that there's so much possible over here. And I had that in at my very first training job when I was back in Brampton. A guy named Neil, and I was working the front desk at a Good Life, actually. And I remember he every time he was the fitness manager, and every time he left, he would usually make a point to stop, look at me, and say, "Keagan, why are you working the front desk? You're like the most jacked front desk guy I've ever seen in my life. This seems so unnecessary. Stop fooling around and come over and work with me in the fitness session. All right, just come be a trainer. Stop all of this nonsense. Be a trainer." And he would say that a number of times. And it eventually got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this because he seems to think I have something in me that's going to make me a good trainer. I have to follow through. And so I decided to take the plunge. And as I did, he was there every step of the way at the start there, just kind of helping me figure out what I need to know, how I was going to approach certain parts of my career, and even just sort of helping me get the right mindset as a trainer. He would do things where, like, I'd be working out in one of the rooms and he would come in and just sit down, quiet, not say anything, not announce his presence, just maybe eating something because he's on his lunch. And then in a rest set, while I'm sort of breathing heavy, whatever, "Hey, Keagan, you should try," and then give me like 2 or 3 tips and then just walk away. And I would stand there at first, not really realizing the gravity of it, and then immediately just be hit by like a wave of like, realizations like, oh my God, this is epiphany. This is huge. Like if I change this and this and this and I start doing it, this is a whole different ballgame. I feel like a million times more secure in this. I feel better. This feels easier. I feel, and it was that sort of thing where he would show me like, there's little things can make a huge difference. And, he had a wealth of information like that to share. And he is a major part of the reason why I'm still part of the fitness world. Because every step of the way, like if it wasn't while I was with him going like, okay, how would I approach this? And now even asking him now, years down the line, I still think to myself, okay, how would Neil approach this? What would he do right now? And it does a great deal for me to help guide me in the right direction. I feel like, it also helps that I've worked around some amazing people, and keeping really smart, driven, passionate, knowledgeable people around you makes a huge difference to you as a trainer as well. Part of it is just the fact that if you put yourself around a bunch of people who are way higher level than you, you immediately think to yourself, damn it, I am so outclassed. I have to step my game up fast or be completely overrun by these people. And it motivates you. And then there's also just the fact that if they're a good team of people, they'll share information with you, information you wouldn't have access to, because it's not just something out of a textbook. It's part of their rich experience, what they've seen, what they've done, the clients they've worked with, the many years they've spent in the industry. And you get to now be partake of that information, that crazy wealth of information that they have at their disposal. You get to pick at it if you take that chance, if you dive in there. And so, yeah, those two things can make a huge difference to you as a trainer. And it's made a huge difference in my life and my career as a trainer, for sure.
So personal trainers have been hit pretty hard with COVID because all the gyms are closed. So how has that affected your business? How have you adapted? And what good has come from the last 3 months of self-isolation?
Well, it's hit us all hard. I think for a lot of us, it's just sort of slowed us to either a very like crawling pace, or even like some of us just a stop. Because it's one thing to be a trainer at a gym and maybe have your clients that you work with there, but like especially for someone like me who goes into people's houses, I can be so dangerous in terms of transmission because I'm seeing so many people and interacting with so many families that the spread for me alone could be so drastic. And so, for me, it's ground me to like a screeching halt on a lot of levels, but it's also caused me to sit down and think about how I can adapt my business to possibly make things even more accessible to people. So really opening my eyes and like exposing me to the possibility of online coaching sessions, and thinking my way through how would I coach somebody either through nutrition or even like an actual workout through workout long distance via video. So starting to sort through pieces like that, providing offerings that are, very cost effective. It's a difficult thing as a business to walk the line between cost effective for an individual who's purchasing it, but profitable for the business who's providing it. But finding that balance so that people can still find their way to, the fitness and the health that they're looking for, that I want to provide, that I want to bring to them. And so thinking about new services that I can bring, like the idea of the 1 month nutrition plan was something that kind of came to me as a suggestion from a client who said, can you do this for me? I just want a program for a month. Is that possible? And I thought to myself, I never really thought of doing that. But I could, if I offer, something small, something bite-sized like that, it could be really beneficial to people to kind of get the ball rolling, and also great for me to kind of help build some relationships and, help some people. So yeah, it's definitely helped me think around that. And so I've started to adapt practices and adapt some of my offerings to try to be more accessible and more reachable for people. In terms of the good that's come out of it, personally, I could say that from a workout perspective, I've really gained a new appreciation for at-home workouts. I've definitely delved deeper and done more running now than I've ever done in my entire life. I feel like this is the most running I have ever done, and that's because I felt like I needed to break up the resistance training some. And also, I've gotten to spend a lot of time with my daughter, which would never have happened beforehand. Like I would have been, going to clients and working and stuff, and I wouldn't have been around as much. But the fact that I was able to stay home as much as I am and help take care of her during the day, I've gotten to watch so many little milestones I never would have been able to see otherwise. Like I got to watch her figure out how to crawl, which from like a physiological standpoint was super cool for me to like as a trainer think like, okay, so she's getting this mechanic down and she's putting this mechanic with it, and soon she's going to combine them and then she's going to start crawling, and like seeing all these movement patterns sort of start to develop was so cool from that angle. But just as a father, like I got to watch my girl learn to crawl. Like that was so cool. And like being able to be present for these sorts of things, that's a silver lining for me for sure, is because I would have missed this otherwise. I'm sure I would have missed so much of this, but I've gotten to be here to watch her do that, to watch her, start teething, and like she has like 8 teeth now, which I'm pretty sure is way ahead of the damn curve because she's only 8 months, but I got to see that happen. And I got to, of course, be with her while she was mad and angry and her mouth hurt. But nonetheless, I was here. I could say I was here and I got to be here and I got to really be present in those moments, which was great. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Do you have any tips for people that are looking to stay active while the gyms are still closed? I hear that in Toronto, around July 13th is the date that they're expecting maybe some gyms open up again. So any tips for people at home that want to be healthy? And what do you think gyms are going to look like when they reopen? Just less equipment, stuff spaced out, smaller capacity, everything wiped down. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, in terms of staying fit, while we're at this whole stay at home, don't go anywhere, and the gyms are still closed, body weight is just indispensable. It's one of those things where it's like you can do a lot of damage with body weight, especially with body weight and high repetitions, and way more than you'd think you could get done. Don't underestimate the power of a body weight workout. So that's one thing I would say. That and running have been just fantastic. Get outside and go for a run or a jog, or even just like a nice long walk is great too. So those are like the best tips I can give, and also keep your eyes open online for the various, members of the fitness community like me who provide like random workouts, full scale exercises, or like, even like a full workout program for like a certain hour of the day that like come join us for free on this, Zoom meeting or Instagram live and, be part of our workout for free. There's so many people doing that right now that it's a great way to get information and experience from these people who, we're just trying to help the community right now, knowing that everyone's going to have a bit of a difficult time of it. And so we're giving what we can back to the world, to our communities online, to try to help them stay as fit and as active as possible. And it's for free, and take advantage of it. There's no point in letting that stuff pass you by. Right. As far as what I think gyms are going to look like, it's going to probably be a lot of masks everywhere. I'm thinking that the cleanliness of gyms from a customer perspective of us actually doing more to keep the place clean will be definitely on a whole new level. At least I hope so. For the love of God, please let that be the reality, because I don't think gyms will have a very good time if people get slack while they're at the gym. If they start going, oh, well, this isn't my house, this isn't my place, so that's fine, I can just leave this here, I don't have to wipe down this machine, I don't have to wipe down this anymore. It's gonna take an effort from all of us to step up our cleaning game and to take responsibility for our own messes, so that other people are coming to clean machines, clean equipment, and it's all a lot safer for all of us. Because if we don't do that, it could go really badly, and where it could start going badly could be the gym world. And I would hate for us to have to deal with that particular title as the ones who restarted the pandemic. That'd be just terrible.
How important is personal growth, and what are you doing today to be a better version than you were yesterday?
Personal growth is something that I think is important, especially for every trainer, just because, like I said, if we're not constantly hungry and pushing to learn more and to improve ourselves as trainers, as people, then we run the risk of, letting other people easily pass us by. So constantly searching for something, an edge, a new direction, a new perspective that can help you service your clients and new clients better is just, it's a fundamental piece of the puzzle for us. So for me, it's very much a sort of yearly cycle. Usually at near the sort of September-ish time of the year, I usually pick a course of some sort in the fitness world to kind of tackle and get a new certification. Usually I'm, for the months preceding that, I'm thinking about, okay, what's happening with my clients? What are they going through now that I maybe don't understand, or that I don't have the tools necessary to properly tackle? It could be something as simple as like the psychology of training that I just want to get a more in-depth understanding of, or maybe it's a specific certification like the pregnancy fitness one, or maybe it's nutrition that I really want to really iron down, just really lock into that and get as much information and as much knowledge as possible. And then from there, I do that course. Usually, if all goes well, I'm done it by the end of the year, if not beginning of next year. And then I spend the next year sort of applying it as much as possible, looking at my clients, trying to find ways to just integrate it into their workouts, into their routines, into their daily lives, so that they can see change, they can see progress, but I can also practice the skill and become more experienced with it, become more confident with it. And then, of course, usually by around August, I'm thinking, okay, I feel comfortable. I feel good with this. What's next? What do they need? What can I do next? And so we're kind of coming up towards the end of this last cycle. So I'm starting to think about where I might put in the next piece of energy. But yeah, it's for me, it's a yearly thing. And it's sort of like, that's the cycle it takes. It's new course, apply the information, what's next? New course, apply the information, what's next? And then just a constant revolving cycle of that. Because I feel like if I ever slow down and stop, I'm just going to just get left in the breeze. And I've met so many great trainers who would just dust me in a second, who maybe even already are just destroying me in terms of knowledge or experience. And I'm a competitive guy. I'm not going to let them just take me down without a fight. I'm going to go down swinging if I go down. So yeah, just constant improvement, constantly pushing, constantly head to the ground, and just stay hungry. I try to stay as hungry for knowledge and to be the best as humanly possible.
As we near the end of this episode, let's rapid fire through a few questions and answers here.
All right.
So when you find yourself in a rut, when you're kind of down, you're questioning yourself, there's a little bit of doubt, some fear, some worry, how do you snap out of that as quickly as possible so it doesn't drag on for longer than it should?
Remember the goal. You just got to remember the goal, because you started that thing for a reason. Whatever it is you're doing that you're in a rut with, you started it for a reason. If you don't remember that reason, easy to fall off. The moment you lock into, this is why I did this, the fire needs to ignite right there. If it doesn't, you need to wonder why it is that it's not. There's something wrong with that goal if it isn't firing you up to push on and keep going and make it out of that rut into that new space that you're charging into.
If your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. So having a powerful why and tapping into it in those down moments.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Now, if I say, hey, Keagan, look, you've been at it over a decade in the fitness world. What's your favorite professional memory? What comes to mind first thing?
First thing that comes to mind is a client I worked with in relatively early days. She was getting ready for a wedding, and she had put on some extra weight, of course, over the years. And, she wanted to look, good for her wedding and be, in a certain condition, lose a certain amount of weight before that happened. And she was really worried that it wasn't going to be possible. She was very discouraged. And I remember telling her, like, don't worry, like, are you going to bust your ass? You're going to put in the work? And she was like, yeah, I'm going to do whatever it takes, Keagan, let's go. And I just pushed the hell out of her for a good couple months. And by the time her wedding came around, she fit in her dress with a little room to spare. It had to be like altered so that she could get into it properly and it would fit, as she hoped it would, because now she was actually a little smaller than originally planned.
She had room to slide a flask in and a cell phone.
Right. And so she was ready to go for that. She trained with me a little longer afterwards, but how happy she was that she reached her goal. It wasn't just the happiness that she had lost the weight. It was the happiness that she had accomplished something that she didn't think she could. And I remember just feeling so great about that. And now every time, like every so often, I'll see her on Instagram and I'll send her a message, say, how you doing? And, she's just a sweet woman, just really great person. And she always seems like she remembers that, and it's still in her. She still feels that, like, I can't believe that you allowed me to get to that place. And I'm so happy I got there. So yeah, that's one of my favorite professional memories for sure.
So there are a lot of personal trainers, but not everyone has had the success that you've had. So when you look at yourself, what are the top traits that you can identify in yourself that have allowed you to get to where you are?
I'd say tenacity and hunger. I'm not the kind of person who likes to give up easily. I'm the kind of person who, I'll bash my head against the wall until I feel like I've broken through as much as I wanted to break through. And that, it can sometimes work to your disadvantage, but when it comes to the world of business and when it comes to the world of training, it's all too easily, it's a great tool. It's all too easily looked at as like one of the better tools, because sometimes to break through to that plateau to the next level up, you just got to keep going and not care about the possibility that it's not working out exactly as you planned. At the same time, adaptability is also a very necessary thing. I've always thought of it like a chameleon. A chameleon doesn't change what it is, it just changes its color. So you don't have to compromise who or what you are. Just adapt to the situation so that you can survive, so that you can thrive, so that you can move forward. And a chameleon, at the end of the day, whether it's red, purple, green, orange, whatever, it's still a chameleon. So it's just doing what it has to do to survive and keep going and keep finding the next day, the next level, the next meal. And yeah, that's kind of how I look at me as a trainer. It's just be a chameleon. Every year when things change, adapt to it. Don't change who you are, but adapt.
When you look back at your career, what is the biggest mistake that you've made and what did you learn from it? And then on the other side of it, what do you think the smartest thing you've done is so that we can maybe follow in your footsteps?
Well, I would say the biggest mistake I made early on is that I didn't put as much stock into certifications as I did into just learning. I'm very much a big fan of sort of learning on your own. And so I did a lot of reading of my own research papers just to like gain information on certain topics. I went to various conferences to learn from some of the best in the field, one of which Len Kravitz, love his stuff, great information, great amount of knowledge on hypertrophy and just growing muscle. And so I would absorb his information and I would just treat it like gospel and like master it and make it my own. But there's no certification with that. And now I know that there's a lot of weight to be had with a certification, because when someone sees that paper, that proof that you have graduated or completed something, that has weight. It provides that trust that, okay, he knows what he's talking about. And so I would say, as a mistake there, not putting enough weight and attention on that for myself to gain more of those early on. Now, one of the successes, hilariously enough, happens to be one of the things I'm proudest of is that in and of itself, the fact that I was just so hungry to learn things that I was constantly absorbing information from wherever I could, because that made it so that I wasn't just the average trainer. I was a trainer who was constantly absorbing information from his colleagues, constantly absorbing information from studies, constantly absorbing information from elites in the field and in the world of research. I was constantly keeping my head down and learning from them, and it allowed me to understand a number of concepts that a lot of people don't really grasp until many years further down the line. But I had that mastered like way earlier in my career, and so it was both a gift and a curse. And so I'd say that those are the things that I think helped. Staying hungry to learn, always wanted to know more and always wanted to master various elements of the workout world to become better and stand out from the crowd as much as possible.
So we're almost halfway through the year. So what is your vision for the rest of 2020? And have you set any specific goals that get you out of bed excited in the morning?
I'd say the goal that gets me the most excited is probably the idea of bringing fitness in a more accessible way to people. Once I realized that, if I find ways to make this more financially accessible to people, like I'll be able to help so many more people. And so starting to set down a foundation and create, especially on the nutrition side, because again, that's one of the easiest ways to reach people and help people, because I don't have to actually be there for that. So starting to think around finding a way to create something that'll allow me to rapid fire help large numbers of people via nutrition in a way that's super financially accessible, so that they can all just be like, I've changed my life. All I had to do was like take stock of what he had here. This package of information, these guidelines took me from, being a couch potato to feeling great and like wearing clothes that I haven't worn in years. So that's the thing I think that gets me the most excited professionally right now. Like that's top priority, because I know the world's going to be a very different place when, we start opening things back up, and I want to be ready for it. And I think those of us in the field who make the plans to be ready for it are going to be good to go. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there for us.
What advice would you give your younger self if you had to start all over again today? What advice would you give yourself with all the years of training and experience and lessons and coaching, all that stuff? Talk to baby Keagan right now and give him a little bit of advice.
Well, if I'm speaking to baby Keagan, I know he's stubborn as all hell. So maybe soften that skull a little bit and start being so hard-headed. But at the same time, don't let that fire, that tenacity, that willingness to just bounce your head against the wall until it breaks don't leave that behind. Apply it to certifications. Get as many as you can now, because you're going to spend the first 5 years of your life probably not doing this. Start now. You're going to be a billion years ahead of the game by the time you get to where I am at this point in time, and you'll be crushing it in ways that I couldn't even imagine as a result of that. Lock down nutrition certifications. Know what it is now and get in early, so that when people come into this world, you're just destroying it there. And also, why not look into CrossFit? You don't know what that is yet, but don't worry, it's coming. And when it does, I have this weird feeling it's going to make you a bunch of money. So just how about maybe invest in that a little bit, investigate it, get your hands wet, just start dip your feet in the pool. That'd be a good thing to do, I think, at this point. I'd say those would be the best pieces of advice with all this hindsight.
Maybe invest in some Bitcoin and some stocks while you're at it. So,
for sure.
As we wrap up the call, where can our listeners find you? Is there a website? Are you on different social media platforms? If someone wants to reach out to you for some coaching or some advice, where are the best places they can find you?
Well, they can find me on Instagram. I have a Instagram page, which is Strong Moms Exercise. So strong_moms_exercise. I post a lot of content there, at least 3 times a week. And you might even get some bonus stories and stuff later on in the week. It depends on, what my schedule looks like. So great way to find me on Instagram there. My website, 7thstarfitness.com. There's all of my services are there. So you can go there, take a look at what we offer. You can communicate with us too directly, send me a message, and, I'll get back to you ASAP, usually 24, 48 hours tops. I've got a Facebook page too, which is under the original business name, Black Pen Media Fitness. So Facebook/Black Pen Media Fitness. A lot of my content from Instagram gets also auto posted there too. So there's a bunch of stuff there, plus some stuff that's just for the Facebook group. And another great way to kind of communicate with us if you wanted to shoot us a message, ask us some questions. And yeah, those would be the 3 best ways to get in touch with us. And that's our digital presence right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Keagan. I learned a lot about nutrition and fitness. We were overdue for a catch up, so this is awesome. So thank you for listening, everybody. And
thank you for having me, Joel.
Well, you're very welcome. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.
Have a good one.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'd love to hear from you guys. My goal is to grow this podcast organically, where you're giving me feedback on topics you'd like me to cover and guests you'd like me to interview. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel, and on Twitter at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.